Building a movie franchise is like playing a high-stakes game of Jenga. You spend years carefully stacking block after block of world building, character development, and fan loyalty. But all it takes is just one wobbly, poorly constructed movie to send the entire multi-billion-dollar tower crashing down. Sometimes, a bad movie is just a speed bump. But today, we're looking at the franchise killers. These are the films so disastrous, so misguided, and so hated that they didn't just underperform, they salted the earth, fired the cast, and forced the studios to wait a decade or more to even mention the title again. From nipples on batsuits to a mummy that was DOA, let's break down the 10 movies that single-handedly murdered their own franchises. Number 10. Batman and Robin.
My name is Freeze. Learn it well, for it's the chilling sound of your doom.
We have to start with the godfather of franchise killers. After Tim Burton's dark, gothic take on Batman, Joel Schumacher was brought in to make things toy-friendly. By the time we got to Batman and Robin, The Dark Knight had become a neon-colored circus. It wasn't a movie, it was a 125-minute commercial for action figures. The tone shifted from noir to 60s camp on steroids, complete with ice puns from Arnold Schwarzenegger's Mr. Freeze and, yes, the legendary bat nipples. Rolling Stone called it a bloated, over-budget disaster. Critics felt the series had lost its soul to corporate greed. To this day, fans cite the Bat credit card as the moment they gave up. It was so toxic that it took 8 years and Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins to make people take the character seriously again. Number 9. Superman 4. The Quest for Peace. Christopher Reeve is Superman. But even he couldn't fly his way out of the wreckage that was the quest for peace. The production company, Cannon Films, ran out of money mid-shoot. They slashed the budget from $36 million to $17 million. This resulted in Superman flying past the same 3 stock footage clouds over and over again, and a villain named Nuclear Man, who looked like he belonged in a low-budget hairspray commercial. Cheaper than a speeding bullet was the general consensus for this movie. It has an 11% on Rotten Tomatoes. Fans felt betrayed. The movie was preachy and looked ugly. It effectively ended the original Superman lineage, leaving the Man of Steel in cinematic limbo for 19 years. Number 8. The Mummy.
I saw her. She is real.
This wasn't just supposed to be a movie. It was supposed to be the launch of the Dark Universe, Universal's attempt to rival the MCU with classic monsters. Instead, the Dark Universe died before the first movie even finished its end credits. It failed because it suffered from foundational hubris. The movie spent more time setting up future sequels than telling a good story about a mummy. It felt like a Tom Cruise action movie wearing the skin of a horror film. Critics slammed the muddled plot and the lack of scares. IndieWire called it the worst Tom Cruise movie ever. Audiences missed the charm and fun of the Brendan Fraser era. When Universal released a group photo of the Dark Universe cast, including Johnny Depp and Javier Bardem, and then never made another movie, the internet laughed for months. Number 7. The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
You know what it is I love about being Spider-Man? Everything.
Sony was so confident in this movie that they had already announced The Amazing Spider-Man 3, 4, and a Sinister Six spin-off. Then, the movie came out. It tried to do way too much. It had 3 villains, Electro, Green Goblin, Rhino, a mystery about Peter's parents, and heavy-handed setup for a cinematic universe. The script felt bloated and corporate. Critics praised Andrew Garfield's chemistry with Emma Stone, but called the plot a messy spiderweb of subplots. While Gwen Stacy's death was a powerful moment, the weird depiction of Electro and the Harry Osborn transformation left fans cold. Sony was so shaken by the reception that they scrapped their entire plan and made a deal with Marvel to bring Spidey into the MCU. Number 6. X-Men, Dark Phoenix.
You think you can fix me?
Jean, you are not broken.
How do you fail to adapt the same comic book story twice? Ask the X-Men franchise. After The Last Stand flopped with the Phoenix Saga, Dark Phoenix was meant to be the correct version. Spoiler, it wasn't. Production was a nightmare. The entire third act had to be reshoot because it was reportedly too similar to Captain Marvel. By the time it hit theaters, Disney had already bought Fox, meaning everyone knew this version of the X-Men was already dead. Critics said, a whimpering end to a 20-year saga. Critics pointed out the bored performances and generic villains. Fans were just tired. The soft reboot cast never quite connected like the original actors, and the movie felt like a contractual obligation rather than a labor of love. Number 5. Terminator, Dark Fate.
August 29, 1997. It was supposed to be Judgment Day.
This was the third time a Terminator movie was marketed as the real sequel to T2. Even with James Cameron producing and Linda Hamilton returning, the franchise couldn't find its pulse. The reason it failed was the opening scene. Within minutes, the movie kills off John Connor, the very character we spent 2 movies trying to save. It alienated the hardcore fan base immediately. Critics actually thought it was the best sequel since T2, but that's a very low bar. Fans said, "Why should I care about this new savior if you just killed the one I loved?" The box office reflected the apathy. The Terminator hasn't been back since. Number 4. Independence Day, Resurgence.
On this day in 1996, the world escaped the clutches of extinction.
Your father was the bravest man I've ever seen.
20 years later, the aliens came back. Unfortunately, Will Smith did not. Without the charisma of Will Smith, the movie relied entirely on CGI spectacle. But in 2016, big ships blowing up buildings was no longer a novelty. It felt like a ramshackle hodgepodge of tropes from the first film, but with zero soul. Critics said a soul-crushing bore. Most reviews noted that the film was too busy setting up a space war sequel that no one wanted to see. The new characters were forgettable. Fans felt the movie tarnished the legacy of the 1996 original, which was a perfect standalone popcorn flick. Number 3. Die Hard. A Good Day to Die Hard.
Dad, just try not to make an even bigger mess of things.
John McClane was the everyman. The guy who bled, hurt, and barely survived. In the 5th installment, he became an invincible, grumpy superhero in Russia. It stripped away everything that made Die Hard special. The R rating felt forced, the father-son dynamic was wooden, and the action was so over-the-top it felt like a parody. A joyless, noisy mess. It currently holds a dismal 15% on Rotten Tomatoes. This was the first Die Hard movie that fans genuinely hated. It made John McClane unlikable. Bruce Willis famously looked like he didn't want to be there, and after this, the franchise went to the direct-to-video graveyard. Number 2. The Divergent series, Allegiant. This one is unique. It didn't just kill the franchise, it killed it so hard they didn't even finish the story. Following the Hunger Games trend, the studio decided to split the final book into 2 movies. But Allegiant performed so poorly that the studio canceled the final film, Ascendant. They tried to move it to TV, but the cast, including Shailene Woodley, refused to show up. Critics called it cheap and derivative. Even fans of the books were annoyed by the massive changes to the plot. The franchise ended on a cliffhanger that will likely never be resolved. Number 1. Percy Jackson, Sea of Monsters.
It would seem that the prophecy was referring to our annihilation.
This was supposed to be the next Harry Potter. Instead, it became a case study in how to alienate your core audience. It ignored the source material. The first movie was already a departure, but Sea of Monsters tried to cram the plots of 3 books into one, aged up the characters, and killed off the main villain, Kronos, in about 2 minutes. Critics said, a generic fantasy fluff. It failed to capture the magic of the books or the scale of a true epic. The author of the books, Rick Riordan, famously hates these movies. Fans felt the same. The death of this franchise was so definitive that it took a complete Disney Plus series reboot a decade later to wash the taste out of everyone's mouths. So the lesson here is, You can have all the budget in the world and the biggest stars, but if you lose sight of the story, or if you're too busy planning the next 5 movies to make the current one good, the audience will walk away. Which of these franchise killers hurt you the most? Did we miss one? Maybe The Last Jedi or Spider-Man 3? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into cinema history.